What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Comically Boston. You're getting to 3 this week. My normal Mondays. Yesterday I filmed a podcast for the Marvels movie. That movie's awesome. Go check it out. I honestly really enjoyed it. So go check out that video. Go check out that movie. Comment below what you think of those. But today we are talking about Loki Season 2, Episode 6, the finale for Season 2, and quite possibly the end of the Loki series as a whole. I don't know if we're going to get a Season 3, but this episode was titled Glorious Purpose, and it was amazing. We're going to talk about that in full spoilers in just a second. But we had just a brief little bit of news that came out right after I filmed yesterday's video. So the MCU has now delayed 5 movies, 5 projects, that a couple that had dates, a couple that didn't, so now we have 5 dates. Deadpool was originally dropping, I believe, in May, and is now dropping in July of 2024, and we were supposed to get Captain America in July of 2024. So that has now moved back to February 14th of 2025. So Valentine's Day 2025, a full over a year until Captain America 4 Brave New World. So that's concerning, considering we had reports that came out saying that that movie needs extensive reshoots. So looks like Harrison Ford and Anthony Mackie are getting back in the saddle and having to reshoot a bunch of stuff for that. But then we're getting the Fantastic Four movie is coming May 2nd, 2025. So in between Captain America 4 and the Thunderbolts, we're going to get Fantastic Four May 2nd of 2025. And then we're going to get the Thunderbolts in July of 2025. And then Blade will come November 7th of 2025. I feel like that movie should come around Halloween. Shouldn't that come out a week early and come out on Halloween and be that type of movie? I don't know, maybe we'll get some stuff moved up, maybe some stuff will move around, but now that the strike is over, we're going to get back into our regularly scheduled program, and shit's going to start filming again, and it's going to be awesome, and I cannot wait. But a Fantastic Four movie, Blade, Thunderbolts, Deadpool 3, Captain America Brave New World, I'm looking forward to all of those movies. But what all of those movies have in common is that none of them have anything to do with the movies that we got in Phase 4 or Phase 5, right? So not going to connect to the Marvels, not going to connect to Shang-Chi, not going to connect to anything, Secret Invasion, probably not going to connect to Loki in any of these, so I don't know, maybe it will connect to Eternals. That would be kind of cool. We heard Eternals and Captain America 4 were supposed to be kind of connected, so I don't know, but take as much time as they need, and let's come out with some real good projects. I believe around Christmas time this year we're going to get What If Season 2. We're going to, in January, we get Echo. So, I don't know, maybe there will be some more shows sprinkled out through next year. But as of right now, only one Marvel movie coming out next year, and that's Deadpool 3. Probably my most anticipated movie for next year, and my most anticipated of those Marvel movies that I really, really want to see. Between Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman, that movie just seems like it's going to be freaking awesome. But that's only half done. So they got half the filming still to do. Also yesterday, I love that the strike's over, because now stuff starts to drop randomly and awesome, and you're seeing actors comment about stuff. Some behind the scenes photos have come out from Iman Esfandi and the actress that played Shin. They've been dropping stuff from Ahsoka, some behind the scenes stuff that had Ray Stevenson in it, so it was very touching stuff. But yesterday a trailer dropped showing our first little teaser for the new live action Avatar The Last Airbender, and it looks pretty damn good. The Aang looks pretty good with the glowing tattoos, but obviously my most favorite part, other than General Iroh's that's going to be in it, is the fact that we're going to get a live action Appa. What's good? Appa, yip, you big bison motherfucker. I've always thought this flying bison with 6 legs and a platypus tail was awesome. Is one of my favorite characters from the TV show, and him and Momo, along with Aang, were just like this trio that was unstoppable. And then you add Sokka and Katara into the mix, and I'm in. And then you add Toph, Bongpang. Either way, the Earthbender, she's a beast, and then Zuko, still a beast, but General Iroh, he's my guy. He's just dropped far too much wisdom on a young brain that it needed it, for sure. It needed a good influence. But let's get into Glorious Purpose, the season finale for Loki Season 2. It is awesome. I loved the season finale. It's a poster that came out last week from Disney. Reality is not what you think it is, and no, it is not. If you thought this whole second season we were coming and Loki was going to do it and it was going to be solved and everything was going to be good and hunky-dory, no, it's not the case. Because from what we learned from season 1 and what we learned from that season finale of the season finale of season 1 from He Who Remains himself, is that He Who Remains paved the road, paved the path for everything. So even in this episode, he's still paving the path, and we see him again. Like, oh, it's insanity, the fact that this shit happens and that he's there, and you're like, what? No way. I don't want to see this bastard, but yet here he is, and here we are talking about him. I gotta say, if this is the last time we see Loki Season 2 and we see Sophia DiMartino as Sylvie, and the last time we get to see Sylvie and Tom Hiddleston and the two of them together, I absolutely loved this whole show, Season 1 and 2. It's amazing. It's 5 out of 5 stars for me. It tells a complete story. It tells an amazing story. It's an arc, you know, like we come in with Avengers, and this guy just portaled out of 2012 Avengers, and now to see the arc this character's gone on, and even just the arc this character goes on in this episode alone. Like, poor Loki is burdened with glorious purpose, and you know, Natalie Holt starts out, she's the composer for this series, she starts out like this guy on the piano, just absolutely ripping the score apart. All episode she's ripping the score apart, and then by the end of the episode we all feel like Loki from Thor 2, and we're all sitting there, you know, we're just beaten and battered, and we're like sad, and we're like, I can't believe what we just watched. I can't believe it's over. Like, this is insanity. And the whole show was just amazing. But we know from the last episode that he controls time slipping now. So he time slips back to right before He Who Remains, or Victor Timely, spaghettifies himself. And then he's, you know, and even just the whole, from the opening credits, like, we start on the Marvel Studios credit and go backwards through the initial opening titles, like it's reversed, and then we end up into the TVA and we follow it in, and it's fucking awesome. And then we just over and over again we see Victor Timely, for all time always, running out of this door and just spaghettifying in different ways, and you see Loki on the mic, like, you know, making sure things are happening, and then, you know, it just keeps failing, and he's like, oh, I gotta go back earlier and earlier and earlier. So everything that they were doing, we literally see everything that they had done in season 1, and Loki had to go back through and go back and keep going back further and further to make sure that it was going to work, and so he had to go through trial and error and guessing and checking and doing full timelines out, and then they fail, and then he had to restart from the beginning and then do it all over again, right? So he had all these little notes, right? Like, Victor, you're going to run down the thing. Once you get there, put it in, spin it around, hit the green button. Whatever you do, don't put the thing down on the ground. It will roll off the thing, right? So that means that he's done this whole thing once, where they ran all the way down to the end of the thing. He got there, they're about to succeed, and then the thing rolled off the edge, and then they all died. Right, so he's had to watch failure over and over and over again. He's had to learn things over and over and over again. All of a sudden, he's looking at OB, and OB's like, what do you mean? Teach me everything I need to know about quantum physics and everything he needs to know about making time looms and shit like that. And he goes, how long would it take? Just, I have to know. How long would it take? And he's like, I don't know, decades? Centuries? And then just this cut that we get to a black screen that just says centuries later. So Loki's been at this for hundreds of years, trying to get the right combination of moves that makes it so that we get checkmate, and that we all, you know, everything works out, and that the loom, and it's all for nothing. So everything we see him doing, he goes and he keeps going and going and going, and it's all for nothing. He goes for broke, and everything ends up still turning into spaghetti anyways, and the whole world falls apart. So he goes back even earlier. We see him go back to the time theater that he originally had the conversation with Mobius in season 1, right? So he goes back all the way to like episode 1 of season 1, right? So this is a full Ouroboros. Like, it is crazy. This how they thought of this, the writing, the visuals. They told so much story just in visuals in this episode that's so unbelievable. Like, you guys have to check out this series. It's so, if you're watching this right now and we're talking about the season finale and you haven't watched it, you're an insane person. I don't even know who you are. But, you know, we see him and Mobius have this heartbreaking conversation, and Mobius says a lot of really, really wise stuff to him. He goes, right, so he's talking about glorious purpose. He goes, most purpose is more burden than glory. And trust me, you don't want to be the guy who avoids it because you can't live with the burden. And he goes, how do you live with it? And Mobius is kind of, he's always been on this whispering tone all season. He's just like, scar tissue. That's how I deal with it, scar tissue. The hard thing to do is the right thing that had to be done. And by hard, I mean impossible. No, there's no comfort. You just choose your burden. He goes, thank you, Mobius. And they shake hands, and Mobius starts to unravel as he's shaking his hand. And then we get that shot that I've been talking about all season, where he's in the collar from episode 1, and things are spaghetti-fine. And it's like, oh my god, it doesn't matter what he does, how far back he goes, everything turns into spaghetti. Then he finally goes to the Citadel at the timeline. He has to stop Sylvie from killing the original He Who Remains, because she kills him, everything falls apart. So then he has to go back and talk to Sylvie in the moment, right? And he's like, I've done it. I've done everything. I've controlled the time slipping. And she even figures it out and goes, so the only way to stop everything from falling apart is you stopping me from killing him. And he just kind of, yeah, that's right. And she goes, well, I'm not going to give you my blessing if that's what you're here for. And he's like, what do I do? Like, what possibly do I do? And they say something, and he like stopped, like everything is spaghetti fine. He like stopped time, paused time. She's like, how is this possible? And he's like, I've learned things. I've been around for a while now. It's been centuries. His Loki sorcery has now gotten to a point where it is really powerful, to the point where he's damn near Richard E. Grant's Loki, the most powerful sorcerer. You know, I think we're more powerful than we realize, right? Like, Loki's super powerful when he doesn't realize it yet. So he goes back to the Citadel at the end of time, and he sees Sylvie in season 1 Sylvie, and she's, you know, can't trust him, and he's this and that. He spends a while trying to convince Sylvie not to kill him, and he's fighting her, and she's like, you're gonna have to kill me if you want to stop me. And he keeps just avoiding killing her because he loves her. He's not gonna kill her, but he hates him so much that he's like, he just keeps letting her kill him. Better to watch her kill He Who Remains and just reverse the time again than kill her and then not be able to, you know, like, or just have to do that. So finally, he in the middle of fighting him, he turns and looks at He Who Remains and goes, why aren't you stopping her? Like, why are you just sitting there? And finally he pauses time, and he's like, how long you been at this, right? So now He Who Remains from the season 1 finale is now having a conversation with a Loki that has been time slipping, and he knows he's been time slipping. He goes, how do I know about the time slipping? How do I know about this? How do I know about that? Who do you think paved that road for you to get there? He goes, I always knew you were my favorite, Loki, even when there was 2 of you. There was, you know, and he keeps freezing Sylvie and then like flicking her away so she disappears. And then he's like, is this the first time we've had this conversation? Alright, whatever. And then brings her back and goes, alright, I'll let you go and deal with this. Come have a conversation with me when you really want to have this conversation. And resumes time and brings Sylvie back, resumes time, so Sylvie's about to come in, and then Loki stops time. But Loki doesn't have a temp pad, so Loki's doing this and controlling time without any temp pad, without just the powers that he has inside of him, which is so insane. So insane. And it's crazy. And he's like, don't worry, lover boy, she's okay. She's just frozen. You know, like, and oh man, that whole scene with Jonathan Majors and just seeing He Who Remains back, like, oof, it hurts. But it's also like, damn, this motherfucker's been the guy the whole time. Like, and we knew he was the guy, but he's just been controlling and pulling the strings this entire time. So then finally, Loki goes, I know what kind of god I want to be. and I know what kind of person, like, I know what I have to do. And we see Sylvie and Mobius in this little window. We finally get the Loki smiling meme that we've been waiting for all season. His last person he looks at, Sylvie runs away and goes, I gotta get in there. And Mobius just stands there and watches his love, because Mobius and Loki are in love. You can't forget this. But the two of them are just staring at each other, and Loki walks out into it, and you start seeing the magic, and you see the light on his face, and he's got no suit on. He's just a god, and he's powerful, and we get this dope transition between the suit that he's got on into his superior Loki wardrobe, and his clothes start to rip off, and then we see a cape, and the cape starts to form, and magic is flowing around him, and the aura is just, everything's about to explode, and he blows up the friggin' loom and breaks the loom, because he told He Who Remains he was going to change the equation. So he changes the equation, he breaks the loom. We see his big bendy horns. We see him just trying his utmost to just do this, much like the Richard E. Grant from season 1's finale. Like, or season 1 episode 5, not the finale. But either way, insane. And then the loom explodes, and we just see black stringing timelines. Now the timeline is like a web. It just exploded, but it's all dark. There's no light. And Loki just slowly turns around, and he looks back at everyone, and he's like, yeah, well, no, we got to commit now. This is what we're doing. And he opens a rift and just walks into this, like, rift, and, looks back at all of his friends and goes, yeah, I know what kind of god I want to be. I know what I'm going to do for you, for his friends, to keep them alive. So he starts grabbing strains, and just his strain is like bringing light back into these timelines. And then he just grabbing all the strands and all of the threads and all the timelines that he can, and they're making them into capes, his capes timelines. He's holding timelines. And then he walks up this rock, which looks a lot like the Citadel at the end of time, and he's walking up to it holding all these timelines. He makes his throne that he's wanted this whole time. He makes a chair, and it's gold, and as he's about to sit down, and then he pulls all the timelines together. The timelines unite, a light starts to glow, and then everything starts to glow, and Loki is just sitting on this timeline, and just sitting on his throne that is now at the end of time, or at the beginning of time, or just controlling all of time. And Loki himself is just sitting there stone-faced, just like, this is who I am, this is what I have to do. And Loki is now the god of stories, what people keep calling him. I think it's more appropriate to call him the god of timelines, considering he's literally holding all of the timelines together. But instead of making a loom and a sacred timeline that spins, he made a tree. So with his magic, he brought all those timelines together, and all the timelines are weaved into a tree, and then they branch out into tree branches, and then those branches branch off into leaves, and it also goes down, and the roots of the tree grow into roots, and the roots can grow deeper. So really, you got to think, like, a tree is always growing, and the problem with the loom was a scaling for infinity. If a tree is constantly growing and the multiverse is constantly growing, isn't a tree the proper thing that it needs? It needs roots, it needs a trunk that can grow and get bigger, it needs a top that can grow leaves and die, branches break, branches fall off. But it will be more natural of a thing than just a TVA guy doing shit. But then we also get now, he spent centuries becoming the god of timelines, the god of stories, and then it says after. And then we cut back to the TVA, and we see Hunter B-15, and Mobius goes back to his kids. But yet he doesn't, because we see him with his kids, but Mobius is out in the street like, I'm just going to let time pass a while. So is he sad because he's not with Loki? Is he really going to go back with his kids? Is he just going to stand outside of his house and watch another version of him with his kids? I don't know, but there's always a seat for him at the TVA. Hunter B-15 didn't go back to being a pediatrician. She is now Hunter B-15, or even a judge, who knows. But we know that the TVA still exists, and that what they're doing is hunting down variants of He Who Remains, and He Who Remains is alive, is dead, is at the Citadel. I don't know, dude. Like, what is happening? But all I know is if there isn't a season 3, there's pieces in a puzzle that is still existing, right? So if the season 3 isn't what we wanted, Loki's not in it, I don't care if it's just a TVA season and we just come in and we're with Mobius, we're with them, and they're hunting down variants and stuff like that. That would be cool, but I don't know if it's where they're going. I think this is the end. And then from here, it laid out plenty of pieces where they could go. They could have Victor Timely come and be a He Who Remains that's a good guy. You could have Pravona Renslayer tame Goliath, and then see that whole thing, because we never saw the conversation between Ravonna as a hunter and He Who Remains. So that is still to happen, because we haven't seen that happen yet. And we know He Who Remains is still kind of out there in his own time loop, whatever he's doing. Or did Loki just solve all this by making himself the god of timelines and creating the time tree, if you want to call it that, I guess. But I think this whole season was insane, but I do want to see that Ravonna Kang the Conqueror love story, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see them two back again, but maybe in another project. But they did also mention that there was an adjacent Earth to 616, an adjacent realm to Earth 616 that had a variant problem, but they handled it. So we're good for now. So what is adjacent 616? Is that the quantum realm Kang that we saw in Quantumania? If so, they're still hunting down variants. So, like, I'm just saying, like, what is happening? Like, I still want to see more, and I really don't want that to be the last thing we see of Loki. But if it is, and he's just in this green world, and he's just sitting on a throne holding timelines together, and has timelines just all around him, and he's just sitting there just looking off, I think it was beautiful. It told such an amazing story. It was heartfelt. It was touching. Oh, in between the Marvels yesterday and well, technically I watched both of them on Thursday, but the video for the Marvels came out Friday. This video for Loki's coming out Saturday. So on Thursday alone, just watching the Marvels movie, then coming home that night and watching the Loki finale is really insanity. Like, I can't get over it. Like, 2 different Marvel projects, 2 completely different feels. And one, I had a fun time, a blast, and I can't wait to see those characters again. In this one, I had a blast. It's so intriguing. It's so interesting. I gotta watch this 100 times more to really get all the things that we missed, because this one episode is hundreds of years for this character Loki. And Tom Hiddleston kills it, and I know he will play any role there is for Loki. You know, if they have a part where he's gonna have to be the guy, he'll be the guy. You know, like, they're never gonna have to recast Loki. Tom Hiddleston's in. But I hope this isn't the end. I hope we continue on, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. But we'll be talking more if I have any more thoughts on this Monday's podcast. Another Comically Boston will be coming your way. But I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, guys. And comment below your thoughts on the season, the series, your thoughts on Loki. Hit me up on my other social medias, link in the description below. Check me out on Letterboxd, see my movie reviews I have over there. Hit that bell so you don't miss future videos. Smash that like button for me. Please subscribe if you're new. My name's Big Cam, and this has been Loki Season 2. What a time. It was super fun to cover this and talk about it, and I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope we get to do this more in the future. Echo coming out in January will probably be the next Marvel thing I cover, unless we're getting a What If Season 2 in the next couple weeks, but we should know more about that soon. So I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Peace.